All right, so this is a video to either refresh your memory if you were in class or if you weren't in class to kind of go through the things that we talked about in class. So we talked about how there are specifically four categories that job hazards can fall into. And the first one um, is a safety hazard, okay? Um, a safety hazard can cause immediate injuries, okay? These are the things that happen and you get hurt like right away. So like knives, hot grease, if you come into contact with one of those things, if one of those things is injuring you, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it right away for sure. Okay. So that's a safety hazard. Those are things that you notice and that will hurt you like right away. Okay. The second category is a chemical hazard. These are gases, vapors, liquids, dusts, anything that can harm your body. And sometimes it is kind of an immediate thing. And sometimes it can happen over a period of time. So like cleaning products, pesticides, if you're using bleach, it can definitely harm you. Sometimes if you're using strong enough bleach, it'll harm you right away. Other times it'll just kind of like over time really wear away at your skin. And then breathing in pesticides and that kind of thing can definitely be harmful in the long run. The third is a biological hazard. These are living things that can cause sickness or disease. Okay, so very specifically, bacteria, viruses, those types of things. This is one we know about for sure right now, right? Um, when we're looking at going back to school, biological hazards are the things that we are going to have to be looking out for. These are the things that we have to prepare for, and the reason that we are going to have to wear masks and other types of personal protective equipment is because of a biological hazard. We're going back into a workplace that has biological hazards, so we need to protect ourselves. Um, and so that is definitely it's definitely something that's happening right now. It's hitting a little bit close to home for sure. But it can happen in the workplace as well. Um, and then the fourth category is kind of like everything else. Okay, there are other health hazards that can harm you or make you sick. They might not be super obvious because they might be things that happen over time. But these are basically the things that can harm you that don't fit into the other categories. They may not cause you an immediate injury. They may not be related to chemicals. They may not be biological. Okay, so they're kind of the everything else category. And so these things are like noise, radiation, repetitive movements, because over time, those things can definitely be harmful and can cause a lot of issues in your life. Okay, we're going to break this down a little bit into the different categories. So we were talking about safety hazards. Remember, these are the things that can hurt you right away. So here's a bunch of examples that we talked about in class. Hot surfaces like a hot stove or something like that. Slippery floors. Okay, if you remember Jack's story from last week, Jack slipped and fell, right? Slippery floors, ladders, falling off of them, having them fall on you. Machines. God, that girl who got her arm stuck in the ice machine. Sharp knives, hot grease, unsafe electrical circuits, lack of fire exits. I think I mentioned it last week, but there's a whole story that I would normally tell you about the lack of fire exits and how back in the day, back in the olden days, um, there's a story about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. Um, Google it; it's very interesting, um, and it talks about how many of those people died because they did not have access to fire exits. Um, Motor vehicles, okay, getting hit by a motor vehicle, being in a motor vehicle that somehow gets hit or flips over or whatever. And that includes anything. It's not just cars, it's forklifts, it's tractors, it's any sort of vehicle, okay, a thing that moves that runs with a motor. cluttered work areas. Okay, so that's even like desks at an office. Okay, just having an area that's cluttered or that it's difficult to move around in can definitely be a hazard. Falling objects. So like if you're putting boxes up on a shelf, if it's too high and you're maybe not reaching it quite well, it could fall on you. Okay, things being precariously stacked somewhere definitely could be an issue. Um, Violence. Okay, violence being done to you. So working in a place where you might get robbed, or somebody might become violent with you to try to like steal something from you or whatever. That type of thing. Areas that are too dark or too light. Obviously, if it's too dark, you can't see what you're doing, you can't see what's happening. But it could also be if a place is too bright or too light. You might notice that you're getting headaches or like your eyes are hurting. And those are things that definitely are hazardous to us. Which is why a lot of times when we're in the classroom, I like to keep I know we haven't actually been there yet, but you will notice I like to keep the lights dimmed if possible. So these are all safety hazards. Safety is the key word here. Safety hazards are things that will hurt you right away. Next category that we talked about is chemical hazards. Like I said, these are things that are gases, vapors, they could be liquids, they could be dusts, and they could be things that you breathe in and they hurt your lungs or inside that way. They could be things that if you get them on yourself, on your skin or whatever, they could hurt you that way. So cleaning products, especially if you're mixing cleaning products, you want to be very careful. And you definitely, there's certain things that you don't want to mix together because they can cause gases that are harmful and they can cause you to pass out. Um, Highly recommend that if you are cleaning, especially with like harsh cleaners, that you have a well ventilated space. Like if you're in your bathroom, turn the vent on, open a window, something like that, so that you're not just breathing in those cleaning products. It's very harmful. Pesticides are things that are sprayed on plants to kill pests. Okay, so they like kill ants, they kill slugs, they kill all those types of things. Um, and they can be very harmful to us. That's why you have to wash off all of your fruits and vegetables when you bring them home. Solvents, acids, asbestos. I mean, these are all just things that, like, over time we have learned that these things are not good for us, especially asbestos and lead. They used to put asbestos in like all the buildings because it stops fire from spreading. And so they put asbestos in everything. Well, turns out asbestos causes cancer. So not a good thing to have in buildings. Um, Ozone, wood dust, mercury, poor air quality, gasoline. A lot of these have to do with breathing um, and breathing in the fumes from these types of things. Um, but it's also, like I said, could be things like you don't want to get acid or mercury like on your skin. Okay. So those are chemical hazards. And then the third category is biological hazards. Remember, these were living things that can cause diseases and that types of things. So viruses, bacteria, mold, animal diseases, bird diseases, insect-borne diseases, poison ivy, poison oak, used needles. So some of these things are going to be the viruses and bacteria, those things can come from just being around people. Mold, a lot of times, you really have to be careful when you're working with food because if it's not stored properly, there could definitely be a mold situation that happens. Um, and then a lot of these other ones are for anyone, but usually specifically for people who work outdoors, where they have more potential to be in contact with animals, birds, insects, poison ivy, poison oak, those types of things. You have to be really careful about those things. There's a lot of diseases that can be passed um, that way. Poison ivy and poison oak aren't so much diseases as they are just there's like an oil that causes itching. So if you've ever come in contact with poison ivy, poison oak, it definitely causes like a rash and that kind of thing on your skin. And use needles. That's would be, like more for nurses or doctors or people who work in the medical field. So those are all biological hazards. And then, like I said, the last category is other health hazards. So this is just kind of the catch-all, the category for miscellaneous things. A lot of these things are things that'll harm you over time. So you wouldn't necessarily notice them right away all the time, but they would definitely harm you in the long run. So like the first one is noise. This is why if you've ever been to a concert or anything, a lot of people who work in concerts or do concerts as part of their career, they wear earplugs pretty much all the time, because if you are working in an environment that is that loud and it's great when you're at a concert and it's loud and it's fun, it just adds to it. But if you ever notice when you come out of a concert, sometimes it sounds like you have like cotton in your ears. Okay, and that's because that noise is harming your ears. And so if you're in that for long term, every night I'm doing a concert where it's so loud like that, it definitely can cause a lot of harm, and I could eventually go deaf. All right. Vibration, radiation, um, those are things that, again, over time, can harm you. If you work in an environment that's really hot or really cold for long periods of time, definitely, you guys, we're from Minnesota, so hopefully all about like heat stroke and sunstroke that happens in the summer, from being outside and not being hydrated, and about um, windburn and frostbite and all those types of things from being out in the cold. So definitely a hazard on the job. Repetitive movements, people who type all the time and they're not doing it in a proper form. People who work on like an assembly line and they just keep doing one movement over and over and over again can be harmful. Having an awkward posture, so like sitting crouched over while you're typing or that kind of thing, can be harmful in the long run. Heavy lifting, trying to keep up with the fast pace of work, that's definitely can be very harmful, um, in the long run, because it's just kind of stressful, um, which is actually also on this list. Stress, in the long run, if you're working in a place where you just have a lot of stress a lot of the time, it can definitely take a toll on your body. Um, and then discrimination, harassment. We talked a little bit about that last week, when we talked about Lindsay and her story about being bullied, by Braden, if you remember. And just kind of that, just every day being treated poorly and that kind of thing definitely takes a toll, and it can definitely have an emotional effect on you, and that's considered a hazard. All right. So now we're down to business. This is the actual assignment, okay? But you're going to need to know that information, because in this slideshow that you should have made a copy of from Schoology, what you need to do is you need to look at the picture, okay? So this is a gas station. This is a young man working at a gas station. And you need to look at this picture and you need to look at things that could be hazardous to him. Okay, think about some of those things that we just talked about. What are some things that could cause hazards in this gas station? And then on the following slide, you're going to type in, what is the hazard? This is the hazard. Okay, whatever it is. And then you're going to tell me what category it falls into. Is it a safety hazard? Is it a chemical hazard? Or is it a biological hazard? Or is it an other health hazard, right? Okay, so you just have to type that in. I would like you to try to find 5 for each. So there's a gas station, a fast food restaurant, an office, and a grocery store. I would like you to try to find 5 in each and put the category in. But find as many as you can for sure. Some of them are going to be easier than others, absolutely. And then when you're done, turn it in on Schoology.